Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of Sales TV Live. Today we're asking, how do unethical sales practices keep happening? We're joined by Peter Clitheroe. With 17 years in sales management and currently conducting doctoral research into unethical sales leadership, Peter brings deep insights into why unethical practices persist and how middle managers can reshape cultures built on professionalism and integrity. Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be with you.
So glad that you're with us today. Peter, I want to jump right into it.
Yeah.
Despite everything we know about the damage they cause, how do unethical sales practices keep happening in this day and age?
A wonderful place to start. To give a bit of context, I've been in sales for a long period of time, as you mentioned. I've been working in some great organizations. I've had some great managers. I've had some not great managers. I've had some great working experiences and some not great working experiences. And what I've done over the last year is spent just over 528 hours of research and writing into, in essence, unethical leadership around culture, subculture, leadership styles, behaviors of managers. And that's across about 300 academic articles and some widely publicized literature. And how does it keep happening? So a lot of the research says that you should start looking at the top. So there's a phrase called the tone at the top, which is in essence is a leadership cascade effect. So what the executive function within an organization display or practice, that is actually what gets cascaded down and mirrored across other individuals throughout the organization. So that executive experience that they give out, in essence, becomes the lived experience for others to follow. So where you have executive leaders that don't follow the cultural norms of their own organization, that don't provide reinforcement of the culture and the subculture or the climate, we can come on to that later, that they want to have operating within their company, such as companies that say we put our employees first, but then there's actually no bonus structure for non-sales compensated employees. Those two are polar opposites. So as a result, what you get is people that are not following an ethical executive tier within a company, and then the rest of the organization just manages itself as it wants to manage. And what you get is something called leadership immortality and encouragement. And what that means is that the organization surreptitiously promotes unethical behavior because employees are actually able to create their own behavioral structure. And actually that keeps proliferating through the organization, and individuals then operate what's called pro-organizational behavior, which is where, because they've got no leader or no executives that set in their direction in the right way, they do what they believe is the right thing for the company, but actually can end up becoming unethical, so that there's no common structure across the way. And in sales, that can be quite damaging, with people treating customers differently, people talking about the products in different manner and promising different things. So that in a nutshell is where it all starts, with the executive layer, and that's how it keeps happening, Rob.
Wow. You told me on a call before this that unethical sales leadership is where the real damage happens.
Yeah.
And you've made your studies centered around unethical sales. What motivated you to undertake the research specific to unethical sales?
So what I've come to learn about myself is winning and generating revenue for companies is great. Coaching and motivating people I find really quite rewarding, but I found there was actually a gap as I started to go through my own career as to giving back to organizations and giving back to people behind me in their career as others did in front of me, was something that really became important to me. There are unethical behavior, unethical traits, there's 18 of them that a manager or a leader can exhibit, and one of them is bullying. In a previous employer to Tyke, the one I'm in now, I was bullied. I was bullied out of the organization, people before me, people after me. And I found it really important to understand why, and does that happen elsewhere? And if it does, where can I go to find the path forward? And what I found was nobody specifically in sales, and I'm in software today, nobody had really focused on unethical leadership and unethical managers and unethical behavior. So tying into the ethics of myself and what I wanted to give back to the community, that's why I decided to undertake this doctoral research degree, because that will give me then a platform on which to hopefully impart some positivity in the industry I love, in the career that I love doing as well.
Excellent. We have a comment from the audience, and thank you. Please keep them coming. Rosa Upari says, weak leadership, unethical sales. Absolutely. So, Peter, I wanted to ask you, how can the audience think about ethics versus unethical sales? Ethics versus unethical in the context of sales.
So I guess the first thing to think of is you're never going to be wholly ethical and you're never going to be wholly unethical. So ethics or unethical, or ethical, unethical, it is really underpinned by the behavioral traits of an individual. So if we think of an organization has a culture, and then within that culture, each department should do its best to live by the culture of the company, but each department ultimately and team within that department can have what's called a subculture. And the subculture can get very much detached from the organizational culture. And then the climate that it is experienced by you and I within the different teams that we're in, by team, by group, by function, can be ethical or unethical at any point in time. So you can't be in a constant state of one or the other. That's the first thing to realize. Ethics, okay, is the definition that I've come to synthesize over the different papers, is about a system of your moral principles. Now, in a leadership sense or in a sales leadership sense, it's about making decisions that are the right thing for the common good. So ethics is about doing the right thing, but for whom? And for whom differs depending on the situation you're in, depending on the level that you're in. And that really thinks about what decision you're about to make. Think about the consequences before you make it. And sometimes you will make a decision that is ethical for you, but ends up being potentially unethical for somebody else. And then it's a risk mitigation decision that you actually take within yourself. As to how damaging that may be on brand reputation, or is it something that is not going to hurt somebody, but it's a necessity to make. And specifically in leadership around coaching or delegating accounts or giving out quotas, one person could be negatively impacted and they may say, oh, my manager's unethical because they gave me a great quota, a really high quota compared to somebody else. But in that moment, that manager may not have considered things or may have had to balance the decision out. And then unethical at the same side, it's really about dishonesty, and it's really about doing things that are unfair or making decisions that lack responsibility, can go as far as bordering on illegal intent. And it's that illegality piece that is the stretch of unethicalness. But think of either ethics or unethical as the outcome as a result of behavioral traits that an individual has exhibited within any given moment in time. And it really all starts around what is happening in that moment that would drive somebody to be ethical or unethical at any time, Rob.
Got it. So along those same lines, how do you balance quota and ethics in sales?
Yeah, it's a big one. Quota specifically, so compensation systems. Let's level it up a little bit from quota. Let's talk about compensation systems. So individuals specifically in sales, they will operate based on their compensation structure. So if you want to have an organization that is really customer friendly and is really considerate in how they operate, you would design a compensation system that would reward that type of behavior. If you're in a fast growing organization and you want to win customers quickly, you would reward people for doing that. But what you have to understand is that the behavior of the individuals is going to be wildly different depending on the compensation structure that you have. So a compensation system is basically a form of cultural control. And what you have to go back to when you think about compensation systems and quotas is twofold, really. What do you want the experience of the buying community for your company to look and feel like? But also, what do you want the climate within which your employees work within? Because if you want it to be that, let's go get them aggressive sales culture, then give really strong and punchy sales quotas. But what you will also though get is if people deem them inaccessible, if people deem them too challenging, then what you get is detachment from the organization, and then your top talent leaves. So it's actually about finding a balance that's centered around you having a good conscience as a leader or the person that designs that compensation system. And it also shouldn't just be about the outcome. So an ethical compensation system actually has small and sharp rewards for people demonstrating the right ethical behaviors within the organization up front. So have they been honest with a customer? It might not have led to the greatest sale, but they were actually honest and gave that great customer experience first. Reward that people for it. You should have a compensation system that allows, I mean, spiffs is a common term that gets used, but a one-off bonus incentive for people operating with integrity against the culture of the company, the subculture of the organization, and those inputs actually can derive the output, the sale, the revenue for the organization. Rewarding those inputs can actually ensure that you get a great experience for the buyer. Your salespeople feel rewarded because they're not put under undue pressure with goals that they can't attain. So it's just a bit of balance, Rob, in the way that you structure it, really. But always remember the compensation system that you design, the quota that you allocate to people will drive their behavior. And what you will witness is, as a result of your decisions, good or bad, by how you judge it.
Okay, thanks. We have another comment from the audience. Swaminathan Umaheswaran, I apologize if I butchered your name, says, it's refreshing to see how much stronger sales relationships become when trust is at the core. So
Yeah.
along those lines, I wanted to ask you, how can managers coach reps to sell with integrity and still perform?
Good question. So trust is quite funny. There's something called the leader member exchange, and LME as it's known for, and that's the relationship between a manager and a subordinate, or a leader and a follower. And the trust aspect and getting people to sell with integrity is, again, think of the cascade effect again. If that manager is demonstrating traits and behaviors and a leadership style that is one you want to follow, then that leader member exchange means that you will almost copy what your manager says and tells you to do. Whereas if your leader demonstrates a behavior that you detach from, then you have that disengagement. And what it means is that you lack trust and that you don't actually then sell with integrity, because you almost ignore what your manager's saying because you don't agree with their principles and their approach. So the integrity piece and looking at trust specifically goes back to what's the executive tier within the company, what are they doing and how are they directing it as they go forward. The different leadership styles that exist, there's 5 main ones. Some of you may have heard of them before. There's a transformational leadership style, which is all about motivation and all about setting the right structure for people to operate against. There is transactional, which is almost the accounting type of manager by control. There's laissez-faire, which gets the, it's the hands-off, relaxed manager. Actually, it's the manager that doesn't care. And so across those 3, depending on the behaviors that fit within each of those leadership styles, will determine how the salesperson actually operates. What you get underneath all of that, though, is another one, which is called paradoxical leadership, which looks at the manager that can context switch, in effect, between different situations. And if that manager is able to context switch, then and do it well, so it could be a partner meeting, and then right after it, it's a forecast meeting, and then it's a customer meeting, and it might be then one with marketing or something different. Then the salespeople actually begin to trust that manager, because that manager is able to meet the needs and wants of the business. And then as the individual, you want to follow that leader, and therefore that trust bond, that leader member exchange is really closely coupled. The other side is the unethical part, which is all the destructive behaviors. There's 18 of those, like I mentioned just before, and trust can be broken when you see a manager demonstrating one or many of those behaviors together, and therefore you as the individual don't necessarily want to sell in the right way.
Okay. So what frameworks help organizations eliminate unethical sales practices?
You would hope that there would be one. So that's where I found, that's where I found that the gap. So in doing a doctoral piece of research, that you have to demonstrate that you're making a significant and original contribution to knowledge. So of all of the papers that I've read, there was is a vast amount of research into manager behavior, into leadership styles, into culture, subculture, which has an ethical focus, an unethical focus, a behavioral focus, depending on the ones. But not a lot of them, because doing the research is time consuming, actually make recommendations for this is how you can go and eradicate it. So I've found a beautiful, significant and original contribution to knowledge that I'm going to go follow, which may actually, Rob, which we're all in trouble if this ends up being the case, but I may then become the first published author worldwide on ethical sales leadership in software companies. And the framework that I'm trying to build, what my research question is around preventing the presence and reducing the impact of unethical leadership. So the framework, I've called it the PPRI framework. And it spans across 3 different things. So when you're looking, if you're in your organization today and you're sat there thinking, right, I'm not sure if we are unethical, or I'm not sure if we're ethical, and I'm not sure what behaviors we should exhibit to create the organization, this is what I'm hopefully going to lean into, and this is what you can go away and practically do yourself. It's not revolutionary. Is look at 3 things. So what is the company culture and the company subculture, the departmental subcultures today? And do they actually look at what we want them to be? And do they deliver on what we want them to be? So go and look at your cultures. Secondly, go and look at the leadership styles of the people in significant positions of leadership in your company, your CRO, your CMO, your sales directors, sales managers in some regard. And try and understand, do they exhibit the behaviors of the ethical or the transformational behaviors that you want people to exhibit within your organization? And then lastly, go look at the manager capability. So your sales managers, they may be great at talking about the product. They may be a bit knowledgeable about the competition or the industries that you're selling into. That's great. But what we're talking about is, do they understand how to talk to people? Do they understand how to coach people? Do they understand how to advance somebody's career? Or are they just there to drive them towards sales. So those three things, go and look at in a framework: company culture, leadership styles, and management capability. And then once you've understood that, go and look at the job designs that you have at all levels of the organization. Because again, compensation systems drive behavior, but the job design also. So if you've got an outcome that you want to achieve, but the job design doesn't allow for that, then you've got a real big problem. So design the job and design the sales roles. Again, do you want great customer service, or do you want high volume, almost aggressive selling tactics to go win and compete in your market? And actually then look at what does that leader member exchange look like between your different levels in an organization. And you can start bottom up or top down, it doesn't necessarily matter. And then what you're able to actually do is bring all that together to consciously put together what you want that target ethical climate, i.e. the environment and the feeling that you want people who are working in the different teams to experience on a daily basis. You're then able to design the right control systems that mean that by job design, the customer experience, and then you look at culture and subculture along the way, so it kind of feeds back. And most importantly, which is where a lot of companies miss, is what does that learning and development structure need to look like? Part of the research I did, I looked at professional organizations. Specifically, I looked at Oracle, I looked at Salesforce in their job postings. Neither of those, wide-scale reputable companies, neither of them had anything in their job postings that had anything to do with ethical behaviors, leadership styles. How are you actually going to motivate? It was all job function. We want people with this experience. So go and actually look back on what is the learning and development structure you're going to give your management community, your leadership community, around how they should ethically lead, or how they should display the behaviors that represent ethical leadership within organizations. So patching that together, that's kind of the framework that I'm hopefully going to lead into and create. But doing so in that format, you'll almost create a supply chain of standards and behaviors and controls that should flow through the company, that mean that when somebody doesn't behave in that manner, and this is the key, when somebody doesn't behave against the manner that you designed, they really stick out. And what you find is the herd, because they're motivated towards the goals of the company, the herd actually pack around that individual and hunt them out. They make it really uncomfortable for them. Or that person doesn't want to be part of that experience, so they opt out. And that's okay, that's good, because then your kind of culture and everything gets a little bit stronger as you're going forward.
Excellent. We have just a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask, at a high level, how should middle managers respond when they see unethical sales practices?
So the first thing to really think about is nobody's perfect. So as a middle manager, as have I before, have consciously or unconsciously acted in an unethical manner, and I'm sure in time I'll do so again, right? And here's the thing. So in the world today, the term whistleblowing has all the right connotations, but has a really negative kind of description behind it for all the things that people have seen in public. So when people see unethical behavior, managers, individuals, they don't want to be that whistleblower, because there's repercussions that come with it. So for a manager, what you want to think about is, when somebody in your organization or even you see something that you believe to be unethical in its nature, the phrase is don't stay silent. Because then what you get is an acceptance that that behavior is okay. And if your team members know that you've witnessed some unethical behavior and you do nothing about it, your team members, that trust part before, your team members become a bit detached from you. So the first thing is to not stay silent. The second thing is that create that climate, create that environment where people don't stay silent, and when they don't, you celebrate it. You actually make public what has been, depending on what it is, make public what has been seen or found, something wrong with the product or something with marketing. That means that other individuals in the company see that it's the right thing to do, to not stay silent, to put their hand up. And then collectively, your climate becomes better. People then adhere to the subculture of the business. And then the company culture is lived and is a positive experience for all to be in. A great thing for a manager to do is actually to go and ask team members, what do I do? So here's my behavioral structure, here's my conscious. What do I do that meets this, and what do I do that's not? And when people say nothing, you've got a problem, because you will have done things. So it's really important that you help members of your team or help members around the company to not stay silent, to reward them when they don't, give praise. Again, going back to that compensation system. And then collectively over time, it doesn't happen overnight. Collectively over time, people will hand raise, will give more feedback. And then again, that collective success and subcultural values will skyrocket to positivity.
Excellent. Thank you. Peter, if you were to emphasize one thing you would want our audience to take away from today's episode, what would that one thing be?
No, like I mentioned it before, you are, so whether you're ethical or unethical, that's the outcome of your behaviors. And you are going to exhibit or demonstrate behaviors based on the situation and the scenario that you've been put in. And it's important, based on the environment you're in, the behavior you then exhibit, and the outcome or the result that you get, to go back and understand why. Because if you catch yourself in the moment doing something that you question, someone always said this to me, if it appeared on the front page of the news, would you be okay with it or would you not? So if you ask yourself that question and you're okay with it, then that's fine. But always go back and retrospectively understand, what was the situation that put you in the position to act with the behavior that you acted with, that either meant you were ethical in your own conscious or others, or unethical. And if it was deemed to be unethical, like I mentioned, that there's 18 of them, then go back and look at the system, and then don't stay silent, because it's going to happen again and again and again unless you do something about it.
Got it. Thank you so much. Peter, this has been great. How can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more?
Brilliant. So find me on LinkedIn. Please message me. I'll answer all your questions and comments. I'm hugely passionate about this. In my photo, I look something like this, so I'm not too difficult to find. I also have a website, peterclitheroe.com. It's a very basic website. It's a bit of a description there. And I'm posting some content, including some of my research work there. So go and check it out. I'm always available, and like I said, if there's any questions, do message me through LinkedIn or through my website, and I'll answer every single one of them.
Excellent. If you like what you heard today, please take a moment and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, or YouTube. Let us know what you learned and what you'd like to learn more about. Your feedback helps us reach more people like you and fulfill our mission of elevating the profession of sales. This has been another edition of Sales TV Live. On behalf of everyone at Sales TV, to our guest Peter, and to our audience, thank you for being part of today's conversation, and we'll see you next time.